Directions for governing the taste and appetite. Directions against gluttony. The most that is necessary to be said to acquaint you with the nature and evil of this sin is said before in chapter 4, part 7, against flesh pleasing. But something more particularly must be said. 1. To show you what it is and what is not, the sin of gluttony. 2, to show you the causes of it. 3, the odiousness of it. And 4, to acquaint you with the more particular helps and means against it. Gluttony is a voluntary excess in eating for the pleasing of the appetite and some other carnal end. Note here 1, the matter. 2, the end or effect of this excess. It is sometimes an excess in quantity when more is eaten than is fit. Or else it may be an excess in the delicious quantity when more regard is had to the delight and sweetness than is fit. 3, or it may be an excess in the frequency and ordinary unseasonableness of eating when men eat too often and sit at the table too long. 4, it may be an excess in the costliness or price when men feed themselves at too high rates. Or it may be an excess of curiosity in the dressing and saucing and ordering of all, and it is usually for some carnal end. Whether it may be properly called gluttony, if a man should think that at a sacrifice of thanksgiving he were bound to eat inordinately, and so made the service of God his end, we need not inquire, though I see not, but it may have that name. For that is a case that is more rare, and it is undoubtedly a sin. And it is gluttony, if it be done for the pleasing of others that are importunate with you. But the common gluttony is when it is done for the pleasing of the appetite, with such a pleasure as is no help to health or duty, but usually a hurt to body or soul. The body being hurt by the excess, the soul is hurt by the inordinate pleasure. It is a kind of gluttony in excess when men will not fast or abstain when they are required from that which at other times they may use with abstinence and without blame. If a man does not use to eat excessively nor deliciously, yet if he will not abstain from his temperate diet, either at a public fast or when his lust requires him to take down his body, or when his physician would diet him for his health and his disease, else it would be increased by what he eats. This is an inordinate eating in excess to that person at that time. Or if the delight that the appetite has in one sort of meat, which is hurtful to the body, prevail against reason and health, so with a person he will not forbear it. It is a degree of gulosity or gluttony, though for quantity and quality it be a sin in itself, but mean and ordinary. By this you may see first that it is not the same quantity which is in excess in one which is in another. A laboring man may eat somewhat more than one that does not labor, and a strong and healthful body more than the weak and sick. It must be an excess in quantity as to that particular person at that time, which is, when to please his appetite he eats more than is profitable to his health or duty. 2, so also the frequency must be considered with the quality of the person. For one person may rationally eat a little and often for his health, and another may luxuriously oftener than is profitable to health. Ecclesiastes 10, verses 16 and 17, Woe to you, O land, when your king is a child, and your princes eat in the morning. Blessed are you, O land, when your king is the son of nobles, and your princes eat in due season for strength and not for drunkenness. 3, and in point of costliness, the same measure is not to be set to a prince as to a plowman. That is luxurious excess in one, which may be temperance and frugality in another. But yet unprofitable cost, which, all things considered, would do more good another way, is in excess in whomsoever. 4, and in curiosity of diet a difference must be allowed. A happy or healthful man need not be so curious as the sick, and a happy plowman need not be so curious as state and expectation somewhat require the noble and the rich to be. 5, and for length of time. Though unnecessary sitting out it time of a meal be a sin in any, yet the happy poor man is not obliged to spend all out so much this way as a rich may do. Number 6, and it is not all delight in eating or pleasing the appetite that is sin, but only that which is made man's end, and not referred to a higher end, even when the delight itself does not tend to health, nor alacrity and duty, nor is used to that end, but to please the flesh and tempt to excess. Number 7, and it is not necessary that we measure the profitableness of quantity or quality by the present and immediate benefits, but by the more remote sometimes. So merciful is God that he allows us that which is truly for our good, and does not forbid us but that which does us hurt, or at least no good. Number 8, all sin in eating is not gluttony, but only such as is here described. Now the causes of gluttony are these. Number 1, the chiefest is an inordinate appetite together with a fleshly mind and will, which is set upon flesh-pleasing as to its happiness. They that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, Romans 8, 6 and 7. This gulosity, which Clemens Alexandrinus calls a throat devil and a belly devil, is the first cause. The next cause is a lack of strong reason, faith, and spiritual appetite in mind, which should call off the glutton and take him up with higher pleasures, even such as are more manly, and in which his real happiness consists. They that are after the Spirit do mind the things of the Spirit, Romans 8, 6. Reason alone may do something to call up a man from this happiness of a beast, as appears by the philosopher's assaults upon the epicures. But faith and love, which feast a soul with sweeter delicates, must do the cure. Gluttony is much increased by use. When the appetite is used to be satisfied, it will be the more importunate and impetuous, whereas a custom of temperance makes it easy and makes excess a matter of no delight, but a burden. I remember myself that when I first set upon the use of culinarios and lascivious's diet, as it is called, which I did for a time for some special reasons, it seemed a little hard for 2 or 3 days, but within a week it became a pleasure, and another sort or more was not desirable. And I think almost all that use one dish only in a small quantity find that more is a trouble and not a temptation to them. So great a manner is use, unless it be with very strong and laboring persons. Number 4, idleness and lack of diligence in a calling is a great cause of luxury and gluttony. Though labor cause a healthful appetite, yet it cures a beastly sensual mind. An idle person hath leisure to think of its guts, what to eat and what to drink, and to be longing after this and that. Whereas a man that is wholly taken up in lawful business, especially such as finds employment for the mind as well as for the body, has no leisure for such thoughts. He that is close at his studies or other calling has somewhat else to think on than his appetite. Number 5, another incentive of gluttony is the pride of rich men, who, to be accounted good housekeepers and to live at such rates as are agreeable to their grandeur, make their houses shops of sin, and as bad as alehouses, making their tables a snare both to themselves and others by fullness, variety, deliciousness, costliness, and curiosity of fare. It is the honor of their houses that a man may drink excessively in their cellars when he pleases, and that their tables have excellent provisions for gluttony, and put all that sit at them upon the trial of their temperance, whether a bait so near them, and so studiously fitted contempt them to break the bounds and measure which God has set them. It is a lamentable thing when such as have the rule of others and influence on the common people shall think their honor lies upon their sin, yea, upon such a constant course of sinning, and shall think it is a dishonor to them to live in sweet and wholesome temperance, and to see that those about them do the same. And all this is either because they overvalue the esteem and talk of fleshly epicures, they cannot bear the censure of a swine, or else because they are themselves of the same mind, and are such as glory in their shame. Philippians 3, verses 18 and 19. Number 6, another incentive is the custom of urging and importuning others to eat still more and more, as if it were a necessary act of friendship. People are grown so uncharitable and selfish that they suspect one another and think they are not welcome. if they be not urged thus to eat. And those that invite them think they must do it to avoid the suspicion of such a sordid mind. And I do not deny, but it is fit to urge any to that which it is fit for them to do. And if we see that modesty makes them eat less and is best for them, we may persuade them to eat more. But now, without any due disrespect, what is best for them, men think it a necessary compliment to provoke others more and more to eat, till they peremptorily refuse it. But amongst our most familiar friends there is scarce any that will admonish one another against excess, and advise them to stop when they have enough, and tell them it is easy to step beyond our bounds, and how much more prone we are to exceed than to come short of it. And so custom and compliment are preferred before temperance and honest fidelity. You may ask, what will men think of us if we should not persuade them to eat much more, if we should desire them to eat no more? I answer, regard your duty more than what men think of you. Prefer virtue before the thoughts or breath of men. But yet if you do it wisely, the wise and good will think much the better of you. You may easily let them see that you do it not in sordid sparing, but in love of temperance and of them. If you speak but when there is need either for eating more or less, and if your discourse be first and general for temperance, and apply it not till you see that they need help in the application of it. Number 3, it is undeniable that healthful persons are much more prone to excess and to the defect in eating, and that nature is very much bent to luxury and gluttony. Think as much as to any one sin, and it is as sure that it is a beastly, breeding, odious sin. And if this be so, is it not clear that we should do a great deal more to help one another against such luxury than to provoke them to it? Had we not a greater regard to men's favor and fancies and reports and to God and the good of their souls, the case were soon decided. Another cause of gluttony is that rich men are not acquainted with the true use of riches, nor think of the account which they must give to God of all they have. They think that their riches are their own, and that they may use them as they please, or that they are given them as plentiful provisions for the flesh, and they may use them for themselves to satisfy their own desires, as long as they drop some crumbs or scraps or small matters to the poor. They think they may be saved just in the same way that the rich man in Luke 16 was damned. And he that would have warned his 5 brethren that they come not to that place of torment is yet himself no warning to his followers. They are clothed in purple and fine linen or silk, and fare sumptuously or deliciously every day, and have their good things in this life, and perhaps think they merit by giving the scraps to Lazarus, which it is like that rich man also did. But God will one day make them know that the richest were but his stewards, and should have made a better distribution of his provisions, and a better improvement of his talents, and that they had nothing of all their riches given them, for any hurtful or unprofitable pleasing of their appetites, nor had more allowance for luxury than the poor. If they knew the right use of riches, it would reform them. Another cause of gluttony is their unacquaintedness with those rational and spiritual exercises in which the delightful fruits of abstinence do most appear. A man that is but a painful, serious student in any noble study whatsoever finds a great deal of serenity and aptitude come by temperance, and a great deal of cloudy mistiness on his mind and dullness on his invention come by fullness and excess. And a man that is used to holy contemplations, meditation, reading, prayer, self-examination, or any spiritual converse above, or with his heart, easily finds a very great difference, how abstinence helps and luxury and fullness hinders him. Now these epicures have no acquaintance with any such holy or manly works, nor any mind of them, and are therefore unacquainted with the sweetness and benefit of abstinence. And having no taste or trial of its benefits, they cannot value it. They have nothing to do when they rise from eating but a little talk about their worldly business, or compliment and talk with company which respect them, or go to their sports to empty their paunches for another meal, and quicken their appetites lest luxury should decay. As the Israelites worship the golden calf, and as the heathen their god Bacchus. Exodus 32 verse 6, they sat down to eat and drink. and rose up to play. Their diet is fitted to their work. Their idle or worldly lives agree with gluttony. But were they accustomed to better work, they would find a necessity of a better diet. Number 9, another cause of gluttony is men's beastly ignorance of what is hurtful or helpful to their very health. They make their appetites their rules for the quantity and quality of their food. They think that nature teaches them so to do because it gives them such an appetite, and because it is a measure to a beast, and to prove themselves beasts, they therefore take it for their measure, as if their natures were not rational, but only sensitive. Or nature had not given them reason to be the superior and governor of sense. And as if they knew not that God gives the brutes an appetite more bounded, because they have not reason to bound it, and gives them not the temptation of your delicate varieties, or gives them a concoction answerable to their appetites, and yet gives man to be the rational governor of those of them that are for his special service, and apt to exceed. And if his pigs, his horses, and his cattle were all left to their appetites, they would live but a little while. If promiscuous generating be not lawful in mankind, which is lawful in brutes, why should they not confess the same of the appetite? Men have so much love of life and fear of death, that if they did but know how much their gluttony hastens their death, they would do more to restrain it with the most than the fear of death eternal does. But they judge of their digestion by their present feeling. If they feel not their stomach sick or disposed to vomit, if no present pain correct them, they think they have eaten no more than does them good. Another great cause of gluttony is that it is grown the commonest custom, and being not known is in no disgrace, unless men eat until they vomit, or to some extraordinary measure, and so the measure which every man sees another use he thinks is moderation, and it is fit for him. Whereas the ignorance of medicine and matters of their own health has made gluttony almost as common as eating, with those that are not restrained by lack or sickness. And so every man is an example of evil to another, and encourages one another in the sin. If gluttony were but in as much disgrace as whoredom, yea, or as drunkenness is, and is easily known, and is commonly taken notice of, it would contribute much to a common reformation. The greatness of the sin of gluttony. To know the greatness of the sin is the chief part of the cure with those that do but believe that there is a God. I shall therefore next tell you of its nature, effects, and accidents, which make it great, and therefore should make it odious to all. Luxury and gluttony is a sin exceeding contrary to the love of God. It is idolatry. It has a heart which God should have, and therefore gluttons are commonly and well called belly gods and god bellies, because they love that care, that delight, that service and diligence which God should have, is given by the glutton to his belly and his throat. He loves the pleasing of his appetite better than the pleasing of God. His dishes are more delightful to him than any holy exercise is. His thoughts are more frequent and more sweet of his belly than of God or godliness. His care and labor are more that he may be pleased in meats and drinks, and that he may secure his salvation and be justified and sanctified. And indeed the Scripture gives them this name in Philippians 3:19, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, who glory in their shame, who mind earthly things, being enemies to the cross of Christ, that is, to bearing the cross for Christ, and to the crucifying of the flesh, and to the mortifying, suffering parts of religion. Nay, such a devouring idol is the belly, that it swallows up more by intemperance and excess than all other idols in the world do. And remember that the very life of the sin is in the appetite and in the heart. When a man's heart is set upon his belly, though he fare never so hardly through necessity, he is a glutton in heart. When you make a great matter of it, what shall you eat and drink is to the delight, and when you take it for the great loss or suffering, if you fare hardly or are troubled at it, and your thoughts and talk are of your belly, and you have not that indifferency whether your fare be coarse or pleasant, so it be wholesome, as all temperate persons have. This is the heart of gluttony, and is the heart's forsaken of God, and making the appetite its God.